The rule of three states, things that come in threes are inherently more appealing than those that don't. With the next generation GMC Sierra, Canyon, and Sierra Heavy Duty, we couldn't agree more. Whether you choose to have the world's first 6-function multi-pro tailgate, available only on the next generation GMC Sierra SLT, AT4, and Denali models, to confidently take on heavy loads with the available 6.6-liter V8 Duramax turbo diesel in the GMC Sierra Heavy Duty, or to get behind the wheel of the only midsize premium pickup on the road, the GMC Canyon, you'll realize all three help you do one thing: go professional grade. Step up to GMC and get 20% below MSRP on next generation 2019 GMC Sierra Double Cab and SLE Crew Cab models with a traditional tailgate. We are professional grade. GMC. Offer includes price reduction below MSRP and purchase allowance. Not available with special financing, lease, and some other offers. Take retail delivery by 9/3/19. See participating dealer for details.
Hi, this is Tony Ruggiero, the Dew Sweeper. You're about to listen to an episode of The Tour Coach, which is going to give you an inside look at coaching golf at the very highest level, from on the PGA Tour with my guys all the way to here at Mobile, Alabama in the Dew Sweeper Dome, as we help folks of all skill levels, all walks of life, learn to achieve their golfing goals. Welcome into the Tour Coach Podcast. This is one of my favorite ones to have done. Sit down with Lee Williams. And if you're not familiar with Lee, Lee was a 2-time member of the United States Walker Cup team. He was the number 1 amateur in the world, played on the World Cup, a phenomenal talent. I don't know many people that worked harder than him at all. I played on the web, played all many tours, got to the PGA Tour, had his PGA Tour career cut short by injury. One of the most likable, most nice, fun guys you're ever going to meet. And he was really the first PGA Tour player that I got to work with that took me out on tour. So he's kind of the beginning of all of this, really. Is I learned a ton from Lee about handling myself out there, teaching tour players, because it's different. You've heard like me and Bill Harmon talk about that in a previous podcast and with different folks. And so he was a huge resource for me, and he obviously a great friend. We've known each other a long time. So the opportunity to teach him was really a cool thing for me. I hate that his career was cut short. And I mean, I banged our head against the walls for hours trying to see if anybody could find a way to fix his back. But I think you're going to enjoy it. There's some humor in this. We enjoy making fun of each other. But I also think that you'll see, like I hope you see with all these, like we genuinely are friends and really care about each other. And that's why part of the reason it works so well. And I've taken so much from what I did with Lee to help the other folks. And I still, to this day, in the car, lots of times will pick up the phone and bounce things off of Lee about players, because he was such a great player and such a good person and such a good resource to bounce things off of. And he's still a huge resource of mine. And I think you'll enjoy listening to Lee Williams on this edition of The Tour Coach. The idea behind this podcast has been to give people kind of an inside behind the scenes look, and we get a bunch of emails and stuff. And I thought it'd be kind of cool to go back to where where it all began. And I mean, you were just a huge influence on my early teaching on tour, because I learned a lot about how to conduct myself, how to conduct business out there, how to teach tour players, as well as have fun. I don't know that there's too many people that have had more fun and made more fun of each other than you and I have out there on tour.
No doubt.
We'll tell. I mean, when I bought the $24 macaroni and cheese for a kid and put it on your expense bill, I think that was my favorite.
Well, I think that whole week kind of goes down in the favorites column when you're staying at a nicer hotel than I was at New Orleans, and you brought the family in tow, and I get the bill for the week, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what in the world did you buy? What were you eating? And you just thought it was the funniest thing because of how frugal I am. And
I would say cheap.
I'd say frugal. And you just got the biggest kick out of Macaroni Man, Yvonne, and you eating on me for a few days and staying I think you stayed at the W that week.
JW
right
Marriott.
Was it JW Marriott?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, either way, really nice. And that's a story that you love telling. I actually like telling it too, even though I need to get you back for that.
Well, so let's be fair. So we had started working together. Now, we'd known each other for years because you worked through college with my longtime mentor, Hank Johnson. And so we knew each other since you were in college. And I think that's kind of how that relationship started and why we ended up working together when you were a professional. But when you came and you asked me if I'd go to New Orleans, that's when the Zurich was still an individual event. And you asked if I'd go. And I said, well, we already have spring break plans. And you're like, you really needed some help. And I said, all right, well, let me rearrange this. I'll take the family to New Orleans. So I did rearrange our spring break, but I did take a little advantage. And you said, hey, I'm going to pay your expenses. And so, the only thing I could find was an expensive hotel. And then I took like a 6-year-old to an Emeril Lagasse restaurant and put it all on you.
That only eats macaroni.
Yeah, that only eats macaroni. And then those $24 glasses of wine in the lobby at the JW Marriott that I got every time I walked to my room.
Oh, God.
Oh, shoot.
I don't even buy $24 bottles of wine, much less
We know.
glasses.
We know. Well, let's talk about the work we did together. So, going back to that, I tell a bunch of stories about you that I learned. And in fact, I told one the other day to somebody that was working with me over at Frederica, where I said, they came in for a lesson and, we'd worked a little while. And I said, there really isn't much to do. And the guy kind of looked at me and I said, well, I remember when we were working, and again, I hadn't worked with, Bobby Wyatt. I'd taught Bobby for a long time and Robbie Shelton for a long time, but you were the first person I taught that at the time was on tour. And I remember you came down to work and I said, like, hey, you're doing everything great. And you said, man, if I come down here and you tell me that everything's great, he goes, and I don't need to do anything different. You're like, I'm okay with that because that means I've been doing the right stuff all along, which is different than a lot of people approach working with a teacher.
Yeah, I think as you get older, you appreciate that more. I think the younger that you're always, or at least for me, I was always wanting to be doing something, and it took me a little bit of time to realize that, it's not a bad thing when someone says not really much to work on. Just keep monitoring the things that we've been doing, which is easy. It's tough when you're grinding and having to work on something all the time, and to get to a point to where the things that you've been working on are kind of coming together and you're getting more comfortable with it and it's flowing throughout the whole bag. And that was one of the things that I really liked about working with you, Tony, is that from putting to chipping to full swing, it all flows together. It's not like I get to my full swing and I'm having to think about something different than I would on a 30-yard pitch shot or, hitting standard chip shots around the green. It's all rotation, pivot driven. It's just really fluid. And I appreciated that more than anything. Same with putting. Everything that you
You're a great putter,
full
though.
swing, it translates into putting. Putting is a little bit different in terms of, the setup and that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, the way the motion is worked is the same way as you teach in the golf swing. And I really love that aspect. Plus the fact that you could handle all of the games within the game, without me having to consult with anyone else. To me, that was, very, very important as well.
The Tour Coach here, we've got the best sponsors in the entire world. And one of them, the folks at Vineyard Vines, take the best care of me that anybody in the world could. Always going above and beyond to make sure I've got the best apparel out there, as well as the best product and the best looking gear for me and all of my junior golfers and all the dew sweepers out there. And so now we want to share the love with those of you that like the Tour Coach podcast. So each and every week, we're going to start a contest and we're going to draw a winner for a couple of $100 gift cards where you can go online and get you some great looking Vineyard Vines golf. All you have to do is listen to the Tour Coach podcast and then go on Twitter and tweet me at DewSweeperGolf and at Vineyard Vines, hashtag Tour Coach, and put one of whatever is your favorite part of the Tour Coach podcast. You can do the same thing on Instagram. Go on Instagram, take a picture of the Tour Coach podcast, put what your favorite part of it is, and then just tag me at the Dew Sweeper and at Vineyard Vines, #Tour Coach, and we'll do a drawing each week, and you can be the lucky winner of some Vineyard Vines gear. One of the things I felt like we did good with you was we got you back to thinking, swinging, playing, pitching, chipping, putting like you did when you played great golf coming out as an amateur, right? And talk a little bit about, because I see it a lot, and I've taught some folks that when they, that they're great college players or they're great amateurs and they come out and then they get lost. What are some of the things that happened to you that you felt that when you look back on it now? Obviously, you got to the PGA Tour, and I don't have any doubt you were going to be uber successful on the tour had you not got hurt. But what are some of the things that, as you look back now, maybe kept you from getting there sooner, or you wish you'd have done different coming out of school?
I would just say consistency of working on the same thing over and over and over and over, and appreciating doing the same thing over and over and over and over. And, it's hard to be patient, and especially if you have friends that you are playing against or that you are playing against that are having a lot of success before you may be, or maybe got a good break or two before you did, and trying to force something that really doesn't need to be forced. And to me, that was the hardest part. And I went through a few different teachers, in that time frame, call it 7 or 8 years, and some of it was self-inflicted, some of it wasn't. Some of it, I had very good reasons for making a switch. All I can say is that at the end, when you and I got together, and I had the health issues that I was dealing with my back, and what you were working on with me, I have no doubt that had a 100% shot at it, I would have done very well, and unfortunately it didn't work out that way. But I know I'd been to enough teachers to know good from bad, and I absolutely loved the time that we spent together off the golf course, on the golf course, the way that you taught. You weren't dependent upon the camera, which I love that fact. Because I'd get bogged down in the technicalities quick, where I was always wanting to video my golf swing. And I got away from a lot of that when you and I started working together, because it became not important. It wasn't something that you did much. And therefore, the things that you did, transitioned into what I would do in terms of, how I managed myself away from you. I would send you a video every now and then, but it wasn't like I was sending you videos constantly and, obsessing over being perfect with my playing or, the things that we were working on. I just tried to, be a little bit, simpler in the approach and take away what you were getting me to do was, gonna get me to where I wanted to go. But unfortunately, I had some physical limitations that weren't your fault.
Well, I think that, when I look at, and then I followed you. Shoot, you and I texted and talked all the time way before we ever worked, because we knew each other. And one of the things that I took from working with you was the need to make a player independent, where like once they work and we do the things that you're working on, you're not dependent on seeing a video every day and doing that, and I think that that's a good lesson for golfers out there. And like you said, along with patience, I mean, I've had some junior golfers that, I felt like we've done a really nice job, and they get scholarships, go to good schools, and then they hit a down stretch where they just don't play good for a couple months. And, everybody wants to go get another answer and think that you're going to give them, somebody's going to give them something brand new. And I think that, I don't see that very often, the jumping around. You've experienced it, but I don't see that very often benefits the player. I think that when you have a good program and you have a good, relationship with your teacher and stuff, the bouncing around generally doesn't help.
No, I agree. And I think too, with you, for example, you have built up a track record of, let's just say, a junior golfer. I mean, you probably have the stats to show it or the numbers, but I've seen several guys that you've worked with in junior golf or girls go from playing at an average level in junior golf up to college, being successful, and into the pros and being successful. And, we could probably name 3 or 4 off the top of our head right now that you took from essentially just being a good player to being a great player over the last, say, 10 years. And so you've got a track record of doing that. And another thing that I really respected about what you do is from 10 years before when you and I first met one another to when we started working together, your message really hadn't changed. Maybe the technology behind the message, as things have evolved with, TrackMan and things like that, maybe that changed a little bit, but your core message was exactly the same.
I agree with that.
The way that I also loved, and you did something that I always tried to do, you were always trying to get around teachers that had been successful. And I'm not going to name names on the show, but a few very, very highly rated teachers, one in particular that, took a liking to you. And same thing that I tried to do when I played golf was get around people that were better than me, that were better at certain shots or maybe they thought a little bit better than I did on the golf course or whatever it may be, and try to pick their brain. And you've done the same thing, and you continue to do that in teaching. I really respect that because a lot of people don't do that. And so 2 or 3 takeaways from me when I looked at working with you and also look back on it is your message was always consistent, had been for years, and you had a good track record, great now, but at the time it was a good track record. Now it's great at getting people from, being a decent player to being a great player. And you were always trying to get around people that were better than you. And, that's all you can ask for, in my opinion, in a coach.
Talked about playing with and learning from players that, had been out there, had more experience than you. Talk a little bit about that, because I encourage my young guys coming out on tour, and I did this with juniors. I think one reason our juniors have been successful, heck, you've come to numerous camps when where you came and you talked to the juniors and you play some holes with them. But what did you learn from playing with better players? What were some of the lessons you learned? And I think it's such an underrated deal for good players. I think they get good and then they think it's almost like they're afraid to go ask somebody or they shy away from it. I think it's such a value to go play with people that have been out there longer, had more success. It's a huge deal to be open to do that.
One thing in particular that sticks out is when you hang around people that are really good, they don't hit the panic button very fast, number one. Number two, I think that anytime you're around people that are better than you, it pushes you even harder, and it just makes you better. I don't know. I can't give an exact science to that, but there's not many industries or sports that you have access to the variety of people that you do in golf.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're in other businesses where you're competing against somebody, they're not going to share their info with you. But in golf, it's totally different. People want to share. They love it. I mean, there are so many guys out on tour, for example, that love helping other people out because at some point in time, they were that person. And
who were your favorites? Who did that the most from what you remember?
I'll tell you one in particular. It was an older guy, Joe Durant.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people may not know this, but Joe Durant was probably the best ball striker
ever
on tour
yeah.
for years. And I played a ton of practice rounds with him, and we were competing against one another. But, he was as generous as he could be with any kind of info or any kind of guidance that I would have wanted. Hanging around on the putting green with people, different guys, all throughout the years. And, I can't come up with names specifically off the top of my head, but, I constantly sought people's advice on, certain shots that they may hit, ways that they may hit shots, ways that they were, practicing. You just don't get access to that anywhere else, and being able to show up on a tee and some random guy there that's, a top player in the world, go play golf with them for 9 holes or 18 holes and get a front row seat and watch what they do. I mean, there's no other industry that you get that type of access other than golf. But it's something that I think the hardest thing for people is just being able to just go in it and having the courage to ask.
Mm-hmm.
How you hitting that shot? As long as you're not disrupting them, they're going to be happy to show you. I'll tell you this, like Jason Duffner, for example, he is extremely involved with the Auburn men's golf program. And I mean, he offers up advice to them all the time. And there's a few of them that have come out and now are on tour. Even when people were on tour, I mean, he'd help as much as he could in terms of, how to hit. He's really good at hitting shots around the green, especially spinning shots. And, he'd do anything he could to help you. I mean, if you couldn't hit the shot, you just couldn't hit the shot. But he would, he would offer any kind of guidance that he could. And, being able to pick someone like him, his brain, or just watch him practice it. And Auburn, for example, play golf with him some, things like that. I mean, anytime you can do that, you're crazy not to. You're hurting yourself if you don't do it.
You talk about your practice. One of the things that I learned a lot from you was watching how you practiced. And one of the things that I took from you that I've applied to other players, I mean, I got I had a basis of this from my years coming up under Hank and Mark Wood and Wayne. But, you were very meticulous in the notes you took at the end of the lesson and how you wrote down and described what we did and your commitment to stick to just those things when you left. Then you just outworked a lot of people from there with it. But talk about, how did you get that way? Because you were so meticulous with the notes, and at times you'd come down. Heck, you had binders of notes from your work with Hank and over the years and able to go through. And I think doing that is valuable. I don't know that. I think that folks oftentimes they get lost and meander because they don't have good enough records or really remember enough what they did when they played good.
Yeah, I think a lot of that started with Hank. He was real sensitive to the wording that you used or that the students would use in describing what you worked on and whatever the feels that you had were. It wasn't, he would always say, all right, what do we work on? And I would say it, and he'd say, okay, what's a better way of saying that? Finally, he'd get me to what he wanted, how he wanted me to think about it, but he was very careful, Hank was, in how he worded things. And so I learned early on in college that I need to be careful in the way that I took the notes, number one. And then number two, Hank was very adamant that you don't add to whatever the list is that you're working on. Don't add to it. Don't get off track. Don't ask a buddy that's on the team to take a look at you that doesn't know anything about what you're working on.
How often that happens all the time, too.
All the time. Now, it's okay if you've got a good friend of yours that knows what you're working on, knows what your golf swing is like, and knows, can immediately see if you're getting off track with what you normally do and what you're supposed to be working on. That's different. But just going to random people just because they're a good player and thinking that they can help you, Hank nipped that in the bud really, really fast. So I would say both of those things came from working with Hank early on. He was a stickler for not adding to things and taking good notes, but also being meticulous in the way you worded the notes.
You mentioned that my core of teaching hasn't changed over the years, and I tell folks all the time I've been so lucky because I think that the years I mentored under him were really, really critical, and they were such big formative years for me as a teacher. I took everything he said like it was the gospel at the time, and you always call it the good stuff. You'd always come down and go, you gonna give me the good stuff? And but heck, I learned to make a living doing that, teaching that stuff, and just found a way to stick with it, and then found ways to use all the technology that we have access to now to kind of supplement how you teach that message. But I think but I agree with you. I think taking notes and then having some, a set of fundamentals that you believe in and that you stick with is important when it comes to developing players, not changing your message or changing the direction just based on the new piece of technology that comes out every year or so.
I think, let's just say TrackMan, for example, because that's the biggest change to technology in the last 10 years. I think all TrackMan did was confirm that what you taught and what Hank taught you, and what, Wayne Flynn, I know you worked a lot, you and Wayne have done a lot of work together. It just verified all that, right? I mean, it didn't change anything about the way you teach. All it showed you was, oh, wow, what I'm doing is right. What I'm teaching is correct. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think my core message or my basic understanding of what I teach, I don't think, Lee, has changed a great deal, right? I think my understanding of things more, I think when I learned things from Hank, I probably didn't understand them as much. I mean, I did them because I'd learned them, but maybe didn't understand the cause and effect as much as I do now. And I think that the one thing that, especially with younger players, that technology has helped with is the ability to communicate and show people things and prove things, not necessarily change what I teach. Maybe I've gone in and refined some things about the pivot. I think I've learned, you mentioned, obviously I teach a lot of pivot. Everybody knows that, but refined some of those things in my understanding of them. But I think technology's helped me maybe understand things and then explain it better to maybe a more variety of people. Yeah,
I would agree. I mean, the stuff that you teach is, in my opinion, like you mentioned, the good stuff. And that was actually a term that Hank used to use. I'm giving you the good stuff, Lee. I'm giving you the good stuff. And, I mean, it really is. I mean, it's the stuff that you look throughout history. It's what the greats did. I mean, you look at all the success that Tiger had in the early 2000s. I mean, that's exactly what you teach. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I think there's tons of similarities, right? And again, I think where I've developed, and I think that's why I kind of wish like you physically had been able to keep going, is I think my ability to help people swing different ways, but based on those fundamentals. Like, I mean, you and I talk all the time. I mean, like Lucas Glover swings way different than you do. Hits a different shape, right? And, and Robbie Shelton swings different, and Luke Guthrie, and, Zach Suker and Sepp Straka. And so, I think as we've gone along, taking that information and then developing understanding of ways to help people, maximize what they can do, especially tour players. Because don't you think I think all guys that get to the PGA Tour are already good, or you wouldn't be there, and that's where I feel like guys that get on tour and then they hit the panic button and they go try to change a bunch. I think that's a recipe for disaster, because like you're already good and you're trying to change, things that you guys have done for years. I don't see people do that with success. Tiger probably being one of the few examples, right, of somebody that's totally changed a pattern a few times and still been great. But there aren't many Tigers.
Right. I agree. And, I think the fundamentals just look different on different people. I mean, it's like if you meet 5 people and they're all really good people, none of them are going to look the same, but they have the same, moral compass, so to speak. Same with golf. It's just that the fundamentals, they don't look the same on everyone, but if you know what you're looking for, you can look at somebody who has a little bit of an unorthodox golf swing and someone who has a great golf swing and be able to say, oh, that unorthodox golf swing is actually better than the person's swing that looks really, really good if you know what you're looking for. You know what I mean?
Right.
The fundamentals just show up differently on different people, like you said. You made a great point a minute ago that, yeah, if you do look at all your guys that you work with, from Lucas to Luke to Sepp, Robbie, none of them swing it exactly the same, but you can tell that they all have the good stuff. Mm-hmm.
This has been fun. I could sit and we do, like, we'll call each other when we're in the car and we'll ramble for an hour and then make fun of some folks. And Wayne and the one golf shirt he's had for 25 years that's faded.
That yellow one.
Hey, you got to ask him. I sent him a new shirt with stripes. So he'd quit. Yeah, so he'd quit wearing it.
Did you make him pay for it, or you pay for it?
I paid for it.
Wow.
Wayne's as cheap as you, buddy. Come on now. So anyways, as we kind of wrap this up, I mean, that and your story of always asking me how my hip is, because they used to tell me I fell off my wallet because you'd complain about what I charged all the time.
Look, I've been saying it for years that
here it comes.
That and there's a couple others, that if you fell off your wallet, it'd kill you, and you're definitely one of them. I mean, I couldn't afford your hourly rate now, as frugal as I am. But I tell you what, I couldn't be prouder of what you've done and the success that you're having. And I think I've always told you that I believed in how good you were and how good I thought you would be. And this was several years ago when you didn't have anybody on tour other than me. And now you've got several guys, and I'm sure you could add to it more if you wanted to. And I know you're picky about, getting just keeping it to a core group that you can manage. And I respect that too. But, I think what you're doing and the guys that you've got, I mean, I love watching it, and I'm just thankful that I was able to be a part of it early on, and that you and I can still continue to talk and laugh and hang out.
Well, now that you're an 8 handicap in the Jingle Bell, I mean,
I'm still, look, that whole Jingle Bell deal, I'm still trying to figure that whole thing out, other than how it is not a subsidy for your and Wade's Christmas fund. I'm still trying to wrap my hand around that whole Jingle Bell.
People can follow it on social media too. Now the Jingle Bell's gone international. So, there is some rumor that actually Wade Hamilton's, we're pre-printing who the winners of this year event are going to be on the giveaways. And that there's a rumor that Lucas and I have already been named 2019 champions. But we want you to show up, Lee. Lee, let everybody know also, because you're out of golf. I mean, you're not. I think you're playing more than ever. Obviously, not competitively. But what are you doing now? I mean, I know you're happy. I mean, you and Emily are doing great. It's just been so much fun. Like, we've been catching up more and more. It's been fun hanging out with you.
Well, I wish I could play more. I don't get to play a ton. My back still bothers me a lot when I play, but I try to play if I can once a week or somewhere around there, but still having the same issues that I had. It's just a disease that's not going to go away. But in terms of life after golf, I was able to partner up with a wealth management firm in Homewood that's been around for 45 years called Nowlin and Associates Wealth Management, and that has given me a new focus in life outside of golf, and something that I was always passionate about when I played golf, and it was kind of my hobby outside of golf was I read and enjoyed financial stuff, even so in college. And where a lot of people are, when they come home from the golf course, they're going fishing, or, maybe they're going and doing certain other things that they enjoy. My enjoyment came from reading financial stuff, which kind of probably sounds crazy to most people, but
that's because you turned cheap into a job and worrying about what I pay you into a job.
It works in my favor now, but I love it. I'm passionate about it, just like I was in golf. I'm doing the same stuff that I did in golf that we just talked about, in terms of trying to surround myself with the right people, and working my tail off, and doing it in an ethical way, and try to be someone that people want to associate themselves with, and loving it.
Lee, you're the best. Been awesome catching up. I'll look forward to catching up with you soon.
All right,
you can buy lunch.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right, buddy.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of The Tour Coach with Tony Ruggiero. If you enjoyed this, make sure to hit subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you are listening to this podcast. You can stay up to date because we have weekly episodes coming your way with fascinating people in the world of golf instruction at the highest level. Make sure to subscribe and stay tuned. If you want to learn more about Tony, head over to dewsweepersgolf.com to get all the details on what he's up to. Maybe you want to see him, grab a lesson, or go to one of his camps, pick up his book, Lessons from the Legends. You can do that there. If you want to see Tony in action with some videos and other content, head over to golfsciencelab.com/Tony to get more info there. This episode was powered by the Golf Science Lab, and was edited, mixed, and produced by Just Hit Publish Productions.
There's one thing, if you know about me, if you've listened to the Dew Sweepers, you've come to listen to me talk, is you know I'm big on loyalty. We give 100% here at the Dew Sweepers. We put a lot of emotional investment into everything we do with every one of our players. And the same can be said for our partners and the folks that have been with us for the long haul and help the Dew Sweepers, help our juniors, help us get to our tour players. And so I want to give a special thanks to our sponsors. Our sponsors are, first and foremost, Buick and our local Buick dealers here around the Southeast, Shrixon Cleveland Golf, who've been with me for over a dozen years, and their belief and support of what we do here with the Dew Sweepers. And lastly, the folks at Vineyard Vines. The folks at Vineyard Vines love what we do with junior golf. They support us on the road. There isn't a better family or group of people that are going to help us look our best, play our best, and have more fun than the folks at Vineyard Vines. So special thanks to our sponsors. Please support those as you get the opportunity. And for more information about any of those, check us out at dewsweepersgolf.com, or you can always check me out on Instagram at @thedewsweeper.